international trade agreements that they sign with the different countries, so that we're able to check if these deals or agreements that they are making, are they really in line with our national interest as South Africa? Are they going to benefit South Africa in the long run or in the immediate? So we can't have ministers permanently signing trade agreements, and there is no one to hold them accountable to say, let's get the details of this trade agreement that was signed. Let's see the terms and conditions. Let's scrutinize everything that is contained in this deal and ensure that it is of benefit first and foremost to South Africans. It benefits us as a country before it can benefit anybody else. And check if these deals we're making are in line with our national interest priorities, are in line with our foreign policies. But also, Chair, I like how it was mentioned in the presentation that, all spheres of government are implementing foreign policy in one way or another. Now, Chair, myself, I speak because I was a councillor for almost 9-10 years in the city of Tshwane. Now, Chair, I know for a fact in the municipalities, in the metros, there is no committee that deals with international relations to hold the executive mayor or the MMCs on implementation of or to hold them to account on the investment deals that they sign, either with embassies or with multinational companies. I'll give you an example, Chair. You've got a city like the city of Tshwane signing investment deals with a company like Ford, with BMW, with Nissan, with Coca-Cola, with the different multinational companies that are found in the city of Tshwane, right? They've got these investment deals that they sign, but there is no established committees in terms of the rules that say that this is how we're going to hold the executive to account on these international investment deals that they are signing with these multi-companies on behalf of the city. Now, how do we then ensure that we then play an oversight in areas like that, whether it's played by the municipalities or it's played by the province or even by parliament? Because once a deal is signed between a city and a multinational company or with an embassy or with a different state, then it means it's in the interest of South Africa. It involves all of us as citizens of the country. We must then be able to hold these deals and scrutinize these investments that have been signed on our behalf, Chair. So I think we must look at how to explore such avenues, Chair, so that we then better hold all our stakeholders or all the spheres of government accountable. I'll give you an example, Chair. You've got like here in the Western Cape. The Western Cape is run by your GNU partners, the Democratic Alliance, Chair. Now, you do not want a situation where the DA goes and signs multinational deals with Israel, for an example, because we know that the position of South Africa on Israel, we in the sixth parliament, there was a motion that was passed and was agreed to by majority of the members of the House that South Africa should cut all diplomatic ties with Israel. So we must then be able to better monitor such instances and situations. I will remember, Chair, city of Johannesburg, at a time when Honorable Makubela was the Speaker of the city of Johannesburg. She held a position that was contradicting and used the platform given to her as the Speaker of a metro to canvass for an individual position that South Africa should not really work, should not really cut diplomatic ties with Israel, because at the time she believed that, or she sided with the Israel government over the people of Palestine. So how then do we ensure that when we've got different kinds of views like that, that the position of the state, the position of parliament is protected from opportunistic views that individuals hold? Because once we believe that the Parliament of South Africa represent all South Africans, is the constitution, the constituent of Parliament is as a result of democratic processes. Therefore, once the people have the voters and the people of South Africa have pronounced themselves, then they've got absolute trust in the processes of parliament. And we can have a situation where we've got somewhere a mayor of a municipality, a speaker, a chief whip, or an MMC pronouncing something completely different from what is the position of the state. However, Chair, we are also still interested in knowing, to this day, the city of Johannesburg was supposed to have passed to rename Sentin Drive to Leila Khalid Street. To this day, that street has not been renamed. Surprisingly, interference came from our committee, from DERCO, and through the presidency, that they must engage the city of Johannesburg and perhaps interfere. For me, it is interfering in what the city was doing. They had passed a motion in council through using the bylaws of the city, of which is something that is very familiar. So what is the role then of DERCO going to city of Johannesburg and say you cannot rename a street Sentin Drive to be Leila Khalid Street because it's going to sour the relationships we have with the USA? That was a very problematic move, Chair. And I really think as this committee, Chair, we ought to write a letter to the minister and come and have DERCO come account on those actions that they've done and explain to all of us if this is something they are familiar with doing, if they've done it before in any other municipality in the country, whereby when they rename streets in their municipality, then DERCO gets in and interfere. What was the role of DERCO? What was the intervention they seek to do in the city of Johannesburg? And what are the results? And why is it that to this day, Sentin Drive has not been renamed? Because that for me speaks directly to our foreign policies. We need accountability. Once DERCO enters the space anywhere else, it means they've invited us as a committee, Chair, and they must come here to account to us. I hope, Chair, my proposal will be supported, and we write really a letter to the minister to come here and explain what happened there. Another issue I wanted to bring, Chair, is that our interest as the economic freedom fighters is that what are the deals that were signed by South Africa, either through the president or the ministers he took with him to the US on his recent work visit to the US, with that delegation that consisted mainly white Afrikaner males who represent the ill-gotten wealth that they possess or at the exclusion of the majority of our people. What are the deals that were signed on that day, Chair? We ought to, I saw Minister Lamula, I think it's CNN, being interviewed. They're saying that he's happy about the deals that they were able to sign. Really, Chair, it intrigued something in me, that what are those deals that they have signed on our behalf and nobody has the audacity to come and present those deals to us. So we must also, Chair, write a letter to the minister and seek his indulgence to come and brief us as the portfolio committee on what are the deals that were signed on that day, and we scrutinize those deals, Chair. Now, Chair, another proposal is that once a term, we must be able to have a joint committee with Home Affairs. I'm going to explain why we must have a deal with a joint committee with Home Affairs. We know that, I'll use one example. We know that we had 6 parliament resolve on cutting diplomatic ties with Israel. And we know that a country like Israel, residents or Israel citizens, they do not need a visa to come and enter South Africa. That is very problematic, Chair. We have seen over the past weekend, we had Israeli soldiers coming to participate at the 2025 Comrades Marathon in KwaZulu-Natal, Chair. That for me is a spit on the face of all South Africans and a spit on the face of our government. How dare we allow Israeli soldiers to come and participate in the Comrades Marathon when we know full well that the position of South Africa says that we cut all diplomatic relations with Israel. But how then do we implement that resolution if we have Home Affairs acting in silos, but also Home Affairs says that Israel citizens, they do not need a visa to come to South Africa? These are things that we need to revisit as South Africa. Perhaps have a joint committee with Home Affairs as well as with tourism, because they will, I know tourism sector will say, no, hey, now you want to introduce visa requirements for citizens of different countries from entering, is going to affect the tourism sector. But that is neither here nor there. The important thing is that we've got a resolution that was implemented by Parliament. To this day, the president has not accounted or told Parliament how they are going to implement this resolution of cutting the diplomatic ties with Israel. We have seen it that it has not happened. We are speaking in folk tongues. It's not true. What Parliament passes, the president is not able to implement, because we have seen it for ourselves. As the EFF, we went there to the Comrades Marathon. We confronted those Israeli soldiers. We told them that you leave our country. Why are we running here when you people have been killing the children and the citizens and women and the young people and ordinary citizens in Palestine? So we must be able, Chair, to then say, okay, this is a resolution that was passed by Parliament. Who is the implementing agent? Is going to be Home Affairs, because Home Affairs grants visas. And then we then change the regulations of Home Affairs and say any Israeli citizen who applies to get visa, we must then introduce visa requirements to enter South Africa if you are from Israel, so that we are then able to not grant any citizen of Israel a visa to enter our country, because we do not want to have any relationships with that a country of Israel, because we know that they are in apartheid era, they are apartheid state, they are very genocidal. But also, Chair, how then do we play oversight on the deployment of the defense force? I think I heard they were speaking about peace and security. There was that element that was raised, that how to ensure we play oversight role on the on ensuring that we keep peace and stability, peace, security, and stability of our country, because we know that there's deployment of defense force to different parts of Africa. But at the end of the day, we have seen on numerous occasions, we can go back to the time of Central African Republic. It was the person who was then held accountable at that time was the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans. Even now, with the deployment of our force to DRC, who then gets to be called to committees to come and account, it's only the Minister of Defense and Military Veterans. What happens to the president? Because the president is the final arbiter, is the final person who puts a pen and approves any deployment of our defense force. Then it means the president must also be invited to come and be held accountable on those actions that they were doing along with the minister of deploying our defense force and not giving them enough resources to be able to be fit for purpose and be able to play proper oversight. So those are the things, Chair, I wanted to just bring to your attention. But also, Chair, to say that, today at 2:00, like we have rightly said, is the budget vote. If we have not received adequate answers and all people who wanted to meaningfully contribute have not done so, I'm proposing, like the last time we had a budget vote 2.0, that we extend this meeting to roll over to next week, Wednesday. We finish the segment of this before we start with the business of next week's committee meeting. Thank you, Chair.